Peace through divine unity. Remember, the hearts of men have to be changed. They cannot realize the brotherhood of man unless the heart is changed, unless you realize, unless people realize that there is one eternal Father whose love underlies all things and whose love is in the hearts of all. If we can realize that, it is very easy to understand the fatherhood of God and the brotherhood of man. Without that, it is impossible. Let us realize that. And so, the hearts of men will be changed, as I have said, when that unconditional love of God, irrespective of color, conditions, customs, or creed, is realized in the human heart. Understand that. Pray for that. And do not think your prayers are in vain, because God listens to his humble devotees. He does not listen to the politicians and those who speak loudly, perhaps, without feeling his love, but he does remember those and answer those who feel and want his love only and wholly. Nothing else is of any value. You will come to see it except God's consciousness and the power of his consciousness or his love. That's what is behind divine unity, nothing else. And so, all things were created by love. Love is behind, understand, divine unity. All things created by love. God created this universe. He created all the things of the universe. He created all the beings of the universe, including each one of us, through the power of love. Love is the creative energy which has produced all things. Can't you see? It is necessary to know that unconditional love of God. That's the first thing we must realize. If we realize that, then we can truly love our brothers, no matter what they are, where they come from, what their customs are, what their creeds are. That's the important thing. That's the underlying cause of divine unity. Divine love, unconditioned, feeling that it is easy to be peaceful. Without that, it is not easy, because the law of this world existence is diversity, likes and dislikes. No wonder there are squabbles going on. No wonder there are hatreds. It is due to the law of relativity, diversity, and discord. Look around, and you can surely realize that. And so at this particular time, when the heads of great nations are together, let us realize the greatest weapon we can use to aid in bringing about peace on earth is to feel God's love in your heart and ask him to change the hearts of men. That's the greatest thing. Men have tried for ages to do it other ways, by other means. It has not succeeded. Religions have tried to do it. What have they brought about? Diversity, discord, dissension. And so man must turn to the only thing he has left, and that is spirit, or God himself. That's the only thing will do it. And the sooner we realize it, no matter, though it seems that we are few in number, that makes no difference. One person, one devotee, praying to God and feeling God's love for his sake only, not for what it'll do, but for his sake only, has more influence on the world than anybody else, any of the politicians. All the politicians realize that. Do not think you cannot do anything. You can. You can do it by allowing God to do it through you, or in the way that he wants to do it. These are wonderful things. And so, it is the fact we do not feel the love of the infinite Father that separation is with us. We feel apart from God. Why should we feel that? When in our souls, in our quiet moments, we know we are not apart from him. There is no separation between us. And yet we do feel that because we are not conscious all the time of the presence of God's love within us. It can be done. And it can be done through the practice of yoga, through following one as our master who knew yoga, expounded it in such a way that you and I and all ordinary people, so to speak, can contact and know God, know His presence, and then God does the rest of it through His grace. He says, all right, come home. We can attain the presence of God by yoga, especially Kriya Yoga, but the final step of receiving God has to come through His grace. All those that receive Him become the sons of God. In other words, they are conscious that they are a ray of God's presence and there is no separation between us. That's the greatest thing. This separation is the worst sin because it is what? It is the cause of all discord and diversity. You mean to tell me if everybody felt the presence of God, there'd be any wars or anything? You mean to tell me if all felt the love of God within their hearts, there'd be any discord? That's the only way. That's the only way to solve the problem. Fundamentally is to feel and know the presence of God within you, His great love. Separation being removed, the problem is simplified very much. Because when you feel and know the presence of God, I will keep him in perfect peace whose mind is stayed in me. In other words, when you can at will shut off this duality of consciousness and feel the presence of God as a reality, then you have won the battle. Then you will never be disturbed. I will keep him in perfect peace. If you can do that, says the Lord. And when there is unity, the divine unity, through God's unconditioned love, then all inharmony, all diversity must pass away. Master used to say, when thy song flows through me, that's simply when the love of the infinite Father flows through me, then life is sweet and death is sweet. There's no difference. Turn your attention inward. On the one hand, you'll feel the oscillation of the mind. You'll feel the duality pulling you here and there. No peace at all, inharmony. If you can at will, turn, say, to the right, and there you'll feel the unity of God's presence and you'll feel the solace of his love. This other diversity does not exist. And that can be done because we are made in the image of God and we are his children. We can do that. And when you can do that, then you've won the battle of life. Until that, you are just cast hither and yon by this terrible thing called the mind. Uncontrolled. Uncontrolled mind is the cause of all the trouble. Realize that God's power is in you. You have that power to do that. To at will shut off this duality of existence which causes us all the trouble and causes the separation between us and our Father. You can at will throw that off and realize your oneness with him. Then you receive his love. But when there is oscillation and the mind is in full sway, you cannot receive the high vibrations of God's love, because that's the law. God is a unity of consciousness. Diversity is his consciousness, but it is in the dream, the cosmic dream. We know enough about that. We're trying to get away from it. So let us keep on the subject of unconditional love of the infinite Father. Now, in the history of civilization, human effort seems to be have ended always in inharmony and discord. Even religion, if religion has not brought unity, science is bringing the idea of the underlying unity of things. Religion has not done it. You all know history, and some of the greatest discord and inharmony was brought about by religion. Think of it. And yet science now is pointing to an underlying unity, and man must turn toward that. Science shows that behind this diversity is a divine unity. And that can surely be applied to human existence, not only to material things, but it can also be applied to our human existence and life. In science we find we find that matter is always resolving first into electromagnetic force, energy, and then finally into light. And what is light? It's the manifestation of God, His love. The force of it is light. God created light. And so science points out, and you can prove it by reading the different scientific literature, matter resolves finally into light. That's the underlying unity, so to speak, of this creation. Now we have that within our own selves. We have matter, so to speak, in this bodily consciousness, this bodily vehicle. Behind that is the body of energy, the astral body, the electronic body. Call it anything you will. It's energy. And behind that is the consciousness of God as God's light and His cosmic energy, which produces first the electronic body, finally this physical body. Now, the unity is not in the physical body because we know it passes away. It does not exist eternally. It's here today and gone tomorrow and forgotten in less time even. But that underlying aspect of us, which is eternal, the consciousness and energy of God, His great light, does not pass away. Now there is the unity. There is the unity in diversity. Wise devotees seek that unity rather than being deluded by this outward existence of bodily consciousness. Isn't it simple? Isn't it sensible? We are supposed to be sensible beings. We should be, being created in the image of our Father. Let us realize that we must put our attention on the unchanging aspect of ourselves, on the reality of God's presence within us. And so, the horrors of war with atomic and hydrogen bombs, to every sensible person is evident. And so, where can we go? Where can man go? Only one place, and that is to spirit. Doom will be the result if this is followed. There's no question of it. But still, I always have faith in God that He will not allow it to happen. Whether that amounts to anything or not, that's how I feel. That's the only thing that's real in my existence is the one eternal Father. He can in a moment change the thoughts of men. He can put the thoughts in the brains of men to cause this not to be, this doom to which we are running pell-mell. For God, remember, is love. Let us have that faith in Him and determination to cling to Him no matter what happens. Master used to say, leave all else but never God's side. Where are we going? We can only go to Him. Sensible people can see that. Let us be sensible and cling to Him. It makes no difference what comes. As Master used to say, we must be able to stand unshaken through the crash of breaking worlds. Let it come. If God is with us, what do we care? He is the one eternal Father. And so the cosmic law varies not. Man will do wise to follow the cosmic law, and the cosmic law is that all things resolve into the one reality, God Himself. Now, our Master has a reference I'd like to read to you at this time from his autobiography. Page 447, those of you who wish to read it. Further, the grim march of world political events points inexorably to the truth that without spiritual vision, the people perish. Why? Because all worldly things pass away. All transient things must resolve into the underlying noumena. And the underlying noumena is God's presence within us as love. Science, if not religion, has awakened in humanity a dim sense of insecurity and even insubstantiality of all material things. Where indeed may man go? If not to his source, his origin, that from which he has come. We have come from the light and love of God, and we have to go back to that. The Spirit within him, Master said. And so, everyone who thinks at all realizes that without this brotherhood aspect of man, without this doing away of nationalism and feeling the universality of God's presence in all people and joining in world brotherhood, what's the result? The result is that we are doomed. Nationalistic division must eventually be replaced by a family of nations populated by free people. Free in God, not free in any other sense, because that'll go along for a while nationally, and then other troubles will come, because that's the nature of this existence, duality. But in God it is not the nature of God. The nature of God is the unity of His consciousness, because He is one. This world is duality. God is one. We cannot afford not to know Him. And do not think He is not knowable. He is knowable. If you want Him enough, if you really love Him, He will come to you without question of a doubt. Especially if you know the way to His presence, which self-realization gives to you. Techniques and such things, the meditations which take you easily, if you mean business with God, into His presence. Then that part of it where His grace comes is up to Him. That's His grace. That's why the saints are so humble. They know that the final step depends upon the grace of God, not what they can do. So let us be humble, especially in God's presence. Saints and sages of all ages have promulgated divine unity. Jesus was perhaps the greatest. Jesus knew the underlying divine unity. Otherwise, how could He have said, if one hits you on this cheek, turn the other? Why? Because He saw that the person that was doing that was in delusion, and underneath that delusion was the unity of love. And as soon as that person realized God's love, he would no more hit you on the cheek than he would die. That's what Jesus realized. Also when He said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Could He have said that when they were tying Him up to the cross? No. He realized the divine unity underneath this diversity. That's why He said that. Forgive them, for they know not what they do. And Mahatma Gandhi, through his nonviolence movement, surely realized divine unity underneath diversity. Gandhi realized that, and we have proof it worked, as I will come to in a moment. For instance, we have India's example. India, that wise nation with all the trouble and so forth, there's a reason for that trouble, but behind that is the spiritual treasure of God's presence. What does India do? She welcomes everybody. Come in. Come in has been going on for ages. But what happens? All their creeds and dogmas are changed so that they see the underlying reality, the universality of God's presence. Do you see the point? That's why India has stayed, because they changed that dogma and creed into the universality of God's presence as what? As love, as divine unity. And after a while, they all feel that. From this conglomeration of creeds and castes which they have comes this pure essence of God's love finally. That's what India has done. And that's why India remains with us. And Gandhi's statement is very clever. I want to read it to you. About taking everybody into your parlor, so to speak. Welcoming everybody, but be careful. Be careful of one thing, that you do not lose the divine unity which you should know. So Gandhi has this to say: I want the cultures of all lands to be blown about my house as freely as possible. But, he says, I refuse to be blown off my feet by any of them. That's a wonderful statement. In other words, he means he refuses to lose the intuition of his soul, which directs him to see underneath all these creeds, underneath all these religions, is the one universal aspect of God's love. That's what Gandhi means. And that's what we in America do somewhat. We welcome everybody to a certain extent. And out of that we do hope As America was founded on the tradition of God's love and the freedom of men, we do hope they will change and see, as we see, I'm sure, the underlying universality of God's love. That's why Indian America, Master used to say, should get together. America has the know-how to do things, and the spirituality is coming along. India has that spiritual resources of ages is in India. So if the two get together, it ought to be good. Especially there should be more divine unity. Now, going on just a little bit, Gandhi realized the force of love without question of a doubt, as the supreme force pointed out by his nonviolent movement. But the proof is this: India attained her independence. I remember, I think it was in 1935, Master said, the independence of India must come in all downtrodden nations. It must come. I don't know how it'll come, he said, but it's got to come. And when it happened in his lifetime, he was well pleased. And it came without firing a shot, as I remember, that is, it came through the operation of the love, the unconditional love of our Divine Father. It's most wonderful. We have that illustration of how love works. Love works. Nothing can stand against love. It's the greatest force in the universe. Why? Because it's the attractive force of God pulling all of His children back home to Him. And His love is supreme. I have another reference about that at this point from Master's autobiography. The nonviolent voice of Gandhi appeals to man's highest conscience. Let nations ally themselves no longer with death, with atomic bombs and hydrogen bombs and bombs and all those things that go with war. Let nations ally themselves no longer with that, but with life. And what is life? God's love is life. Not destruction, but with construction. Not with hate, but with the creative miracles of love. Love alone rules the world. Don't be discouraged. It doesn't seem so now, but it does rule. If you want real living and eternal life, tie yourself, so to speak, permanently with God's love, and you will win. You will win eternal life. And so, one thing that going on, rather, if you want to contribute to peace and divine unity, seek God through meditation and mortal love, mutual love. If you want to help and bring about this divine unity, remember what I told you. One humble devotee sitting in meditation and loving God for God's sake only will do more to bring about divine unity than any other force on this earth or in this universe. Such is the power of God's love. Realize that. We must know God and contact Him through meditation. Then His power flows through another channel. And the more you are one with Him, the more you love Him for His own sake. Not for what you can get. That cheapens it, so to speak. I need God and God alone, nothing else. Let us realize that. And so all souls, remember, all souls are a part of God. All souls are rays of God's presence. Each one of us is a part of Him. We seem separated, but that doesn't make any difference. Just like the wave comes up, isn't it a part of the ocean? And so every one of us as a soul is a part of God's great ocean of spirit. Let us not forget that. In Him, we are all one. It doesn't seem possible. Look at you all sitting there and me here and all the people of the world. Tremendous diversity, but still we are one. And we as souls, remember this, we as souls are endowed with the Spirit of God to be able to live above all conflict. Understand that. Do not matter what comes. Do not matter what happens in your daily life. You can because you are endowed with God's Spirit. You can live above all conflict. Not some conflicts, all conflicts. That's the greatest statement I've heard for quite a while. We can, because God is in us. His Spirit is in us. Live above these little petty disturbances, in fact, above all conflict, and that means everything. See what God has done for us. Why do we not know Him? Why do we not find Him and realize this eternal truth? If we do this, if we meditate deeply and know God, instead of there being thousands of strangers and people who seem separated from us, they'll be all friends. If you feel God in all people, I don't care what their color or creed is, they'll be your friend, because friendship is based on the great love of the infinite Father. And also, instead of there being trouble in the world, poverty and suffering, there'll be freedom from that. Freedom from that. Prosperity. Security. That's the greatest thing. Security in God. Materially, physically, and spiritually. That's what we need. That's what the world needs. Not so much talk, not so much following this theory or that theory, but through realization of what we are. Then God's prosperity, then His security, then His love will surely be with us all. And I'll close by one of Master's references, which I know says things much better than I do. First, a little thing comes to my mind which may help you, encourage you. It seems an impossible task when you start to meditate and the mind gets busy, and all the trouble comes in upon you, especially your ability to keep the mind quiet and behave itself. It's impossible, it seems, but you must keep on. This devotee went to his master, and he says, I want to be saved. What shall I do for salvation? And his master says, you start and cut down this huge forest. Well, he says, I can't do that. I couldn't do it in a lifetime even. He says, well, at least start and show God that you want to please Him anyway. So the devotee started to chop the trees down, a few at a time. And suddenly a great fire came and wiped the forest off. So that's what God does. That's what He does. He does it in the most strange ways. But one thing we can be assured of, that He will, without question of a doubt, never let us down. He will never forsake us. He will never cast us into oblivion. He will never fail us, because He is our own consciousness. How can the part be dissolved from the whole? The part is a fragment of the whole, and we are a fragment of God's consciousness. And so, in closing, beyond all doubt, it is pleasing to the Lord when His children struggle to attain a world civilization free from poverty, disease, and soul's ignorance. Man's forgetfulness of his soul resources, the result of the misuse of free will, is the root cause of all other forms of suffering. Man's forgetfulness of his soul as a part of God brings in the separation, and from that separation from God comes all discord and inharmony. To bring divine unity, once more, remove that separation, realize your oneness with God.